The space station floated in the darkness between stars. It was called Nine, and it was the largest military base in the Galactic Alliance. Ships came and went every hour. Soldiers from dozens of alien species walked its metal corridors. Some had scales, some had fur, some had shells harder than steel. All of them were warriors. Commander Sun stood at the window of his office and watched the ships dock. He was tired. He had been running this station for 7 years, and he had seen many things. He had seen brave soldiers. He had seen cowards. He had seen warriors die in battle and warriors die in their sleep. But mostly, he had seen them die in the gravity chamber. The gravity chamber was the Alliance's greatest test. It was a room made of black metal, 20 meters wide and 20 meters tall. When activated, it created gravity 15 times stronger than normal. 15 times the pull. 15 times the weight on every bone, every muscle, every organ. The strongest species in the galaxy had tried to survive it. None had lasted more than 15 minutes. They were the best. They had hard shells on their bodies like natural armor. Their muscles were dense like rock. Lord, the ambassador, had personally watched his finest warrior enter the chamber. That warrior had lasted 11 minutes and 42 seconds before his hearts exploded in his chest. They who stood 3 meters tall and could lift small vehicles lasted 8 minutes. The quick and nimble, whose reflexes were faster than light, died in 3. 2017 warriors had entered the gravity chamber over the past 200 years. 2017 had died. Sun turned from the window when his door opened. His assistant, a small blue-skinned creature named Paul, entered with a tablet in his hands. "Commander," Paul said, "the human contingent has arrived. They must complete standard evaluation." Sun closed his eyes. The humans. He had forgotten about them. Humanity had joined the Galactic Alliance only 5 years ago. They came from a small planet called Earth, a world of water and green land that orbited an ordinary yellow star. They were not impressive to look at. They had no claws, no fangs, no shells, no scales. Their skin was soft and easily cut. Their bones were hollow compared to their eyes could not see in the dark like They seemed, by all measures, to be one of the weakest species in the galaxy. "Must they take the chamber test?" Sun asked. Paul nodded. Alliance law requires all new military personnel to complete the full evaluation, including the gravity chamber. Sun sighed. He did not want to watch more death today. "Can we not make an exception? The humans are clearly not suited for." "The ambassador has already requested to observe," Paul interrupted. "Lord says he wishes to see the humans tested. He used the word entertainment." Of course he did. Enjoyed watching other species fail. It reminded him of superiority. "Fine," Sun said. "Bring one human to the chamber. We will make this quick." The observation deck above the gravity chamber was crowded. Lord sat in the center, his massive shell gleaming under the lights. Around him stood officers from a dozen species. They whispered to each other and pointed at the chamber below. Sun stood near the back. He did not want to watch, but duty required his presence. The door to the chamber opened, and a human walked in. She was small. That was the first thing everyone noticed. She stood only 165 centimeters tall, shorter than almost every species present. Her hair was black and pulled back from her face. Her eyes were dark and calm. She wore the standard gray uniform of the Alliance military, and on her chest was a name tag that read Hana. Lord made a sound that might have been laughter. "This is the human warrior, this small creature." The officers around him chuckled. Even Paul looked uncomfortable. Hana walked to the center of the chamber. She looked up at the observation deck at all the aliens staring down at her. Her face showed no fear. She did not smile. She did not frown. She simply looked. Then she nodded once, as if giving permission to begin. Sun pressed the button. The gravity activated, 15 times normal. The air itself seemed to grow heavy. The lights in the chamber flickered as the generators poured power into the gravity field. Hana dropped to one knee. The officers leaned forward. This was the moment. This was when they always fell. First the knee, then the collapse, then the body breaking under its own weight. The warrior had made it to both knees before his shells cracked. But Hana did not collapse. She stayed on one knee, her hands pressed flat against the floor. Her arms shook. Her jaw was tight. Sweat appeared on her forehead almost immediately, running down her face like rain. But she did not fall. Seconds passed, 10, 20, 30. Lord stopped laughing. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. Hana began to breathe in a strange pattern. Long breath in, hold, long breath out, hold. Again and again, like a rhythm, like music. Her shaking arms slowly became still. Her body adjusted, shifted, found balance. 5 minutes. Impossible, someone whispered. 10 minutes. Hana lifted her head. She looked up at the observation deck again. Her face was covered in sweat, her veins visible on her neck and forehead, but her eyes were clear. 15 minutes, the record for non-species. 20 minutes. Sun realized he had stopped breathing. He forced himself to inhale. 30 minutes. Lord stood up from his seat. His shell made a grinding sound as his body tensed. "What is happening?" he demanded. "The chamber is malfunctioning. Check the generators." Paul checked the readings. "The chamber is operating at full capacity, Ambassador. 15 times standard gravity. All systems normal." 40 minutes. Hana moved. She shifted her weight from one knee to two. Then slowly, impossibly, she placed one foot flat on the ground, then the other. She was trying to stand. "No," Lord said. "No, that is not possible." Hana pushed. Her legs trembled like leaves in a storm. Every muscle in her body strained against the crushing weight. She made a sound, not a scream, not a cry, just a low grunt of pure effort. And she stood up. She stood fully upright in 15 times gravity. She stood where 2,000 warriors had died. She stood and she looked up at Lord with those calm, dark eyes. Then she began to walk. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. The observation deck was completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. They watched the small human woman walk across the chamber like it was nothing, like it was just another room, like death itself meant nothing to her. 45 minutes, 50, 55. The timer reached 1 hour. Hana stopped walking. She looked up at the observation deck. Her voice came through the intercom, tired but steady. "Is this the whole test? Can I stay longer? I am not finished warming up." Sun fell back into his chair. He had no words. Lord's staff slipped from his claws and clattered on the floor. Nobody picked it up. In the chamber below, Hana resumed her walking. She had not even begun to fight. She had simply refused to die. And in that moment, everyone watching understood something new about humanity. They were not the weakest species in the galaxy. They might be the most terrifying. Hana stayed in the gravity chamber for 3 hours. When she finally walked out, her legs gave way. She collapsed against the wall and slid down to the floor. Her uniform was soaked with sweat. Her hands were shaking so badly she could not hold them still. Her breathing came in short, painful gasps. But she was alive. Medical officers rushed to her side. They wrapped blankets around her shoulders and pressed sensors to her skin. They spoke in worried voices and checked their readings again and again, not believing what they saw. "Her heart rate is elevated but stable," one medic said. "Muscle damage is minimal. Bone stress is within acceptable limits. She should be dead, but she is not even seriously injured." Commander Sun pushed through the crowd. He knelt beside Hana and looked at her face. Her eyes were half closed, exhausted, but when she saw him, she smiled slightly. "I would like to book this room," she said. "Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., is that possible?" Sun did not know how to answer. He simply stared. Behind him, Lord was shouting at anyone who would listen. The chamber was broken. The gravity was not real. This is a trick, a human trick. Paul checked the readings once more. Ambassador, all systems function perfectly. 15 times gravity for 3 hours. The human simply survived. Made a sound of disgust and stormed away, his heavy footsteps echoing down the corridor. The news spread fast. By the next morning, everyone on Station 9 knew about the human woman who had survived the gravity chamber. By the next week, the story had reached other stations. By the next month, it had traveled across the entire Galactic Alliance. A human had done the impossible. Commander Sun found himself flooded with questions. Other species wanted to know everything about humans. Where did they come from? How were they built? What made them so strong? He did not have answers, so he began to search. The Alliance database had basic information about Earth. Small planet, mostly water, standard oxygen atmosphere, moderate temperature, nothing special. But Sun dug deeper. He requested the full historical and biological records that humans had shared when joining the Alliance. What he found kept him awake for 3 nights. Humans called themselves persistence predators. This was a hunting style from their ancient past. They did not chase prey with speed. They did not kill with venom or claws. Instead, they simply followed. They walked after their prey for hours, sometimes days. They tracked animals until those animals collapsed from exhaustion. Then they ate them. Their bodies were built for this. Their legs were long and efficient. Their cooling system, something called sweating, allowed them to run in heat that would kill other creatures. Their hearts were strong and steady. Their minds were stubborn beyond reason. But that was not all. Sun found records of human sports. These were activities that humans did for fun. They climbed mountains so tall that the air became too thin to breathe. They ran distances of 40 kilometers in a single day. They dove into water so deep that the pressure would crush metal. They jumped from flying machines with nothing but cloth to slow their fall. They did these things for entertainment. One file showed a human swimming across an entire ocean. Another showed humans walking to something called the South Pole, a frozen wasteland where temperatures dropped to 60 degrees below zero. Another showed a human running for 24 hours straight, covering over 200 kilometers. These were not soldiers. These were ordinary humans, regular people who simply wanted to test themselves against death. Sun closed the files. His hands were cold. He understood now. The gravity chamber was deadly to every species because those species had limits. When their bodies felt pain, they stopped. When their muscles failed, they surrendered. When death approached, they accepted it. Humans did not accept anything. Their bodies broke and they kept moving. Their lungs burned and they kept breathing. Their minds screamed for rest and they ignored the screaming. They had evolved on a planet that was constantly trying to kill them, and they had responded by refusing to die. The gravity chamber was not a test for humans. It was just another mountain to climb, another ocean to cross, another frozen wasteland to walk through. Hana had not survived the chamber because she was special. She had survived because she was human. Sun called a meeting of the senior officers. He shared his findings. The room fell silent. "What do we do with this information?" asked Admiral, a gray-scaled reptilian who commanded the station's defense fleet. "I do not know," Sun admitted, "but I think we need to stop seeing humans as weak. They are not weak, they are something else entirely." Lord, who had reluctantly attended the meeting, slammed his claw on the table. "They are soft creatures with no natural weapons. One of my warriors could tear a human apart in seconds." "Could they?" Sun asked quietly. "Your warriors died in the chamber." Hana walked out asking for more. "Perhaps we have been measuring strength incorrectly." The room was quiet. Meanwhile, Hana kept her promise. She returned to the gravity chamber the next morning at 6 a.m., and the morning after that, and the morning after that. At first, the other soldiers watched from the observation deck. They expected her to fail eventually, to push too hard and finally break. But she did not break. Day by day, she grew stronger. By the end of the first week, she was walking easily in the chamber. By the end of the second week, she was jogging. By the end of the first month, she was doing push-ups. Push-ups in 15 times gravity. The aliens stopped laughing. They stopped making jokes about soft human skin and weak human bones. They watched Hana press her body off the floor again and again, lifting weight that would crush their strongest warriors, and they began to feel something they had never felt before when looking at humans. Fear. Other humans arrived at the station over the following months. Each one was tested in the gravity chamber. Each one survived. Some lasted only an hour. Some lasted 2. One young woman named stayed inside for 5 hours and walked out asking for food. The chamber's official name was Evaluation Chamber Extreme Hazard, but the soldiers started calling it something else. They called it the Human Training Hall. Lord stopped attending observations. He stayed in his quarters and sent messages to his government. In those messages, he wrote words he had never written before. We may have made a mistake. We invited humans into the alliance because we thought they were harmless. We thought they would serve as workers, as technicians, as support staff. We did not think they would be warriors. We were wrong. They are not like us. They do not break when they should break. They do not die when they should die. They are something new, something dangerous. I recommend we watch them very carefully. His government received the message. They filed it away. They did not take it seriously. That was their first mistake. In the gravity chamber, Hana finished her morning training. She had been inside for 4 hours. She was tired but satisfied. Her muscles ached in the good way, the way that meant they were growing stronger. She walked out of the chamber and nodded to the guards who watched her. They nodded back, their eyes wide with respect and something like fear. Hana smiled to herself. She did not understand why everyone was so impressed. This was just exercise. This was just what humans did. Tomorrow she would try 5 hours. 6 months passed on Station 9. In that time, everything changed. The Human Training Hall, as everyone now called it, was never empty. Humans came from all over the Alliance to train there. They pushed themselves in the crushing gravity, building strength that should not have been possible. And slowly, aliens began to join them. Not inside the chamber. No alien dared enter that place of death, but they gathered on the observation deck. They watched. They learned. Hana had become famous. Her name was known across 100 worlds. Military academies studied her techniques. Scientists wrote papers about human biology. News programs showed footage of her training, of her walking and running and fighting in gravity that would kill anyone else. But Hana did not care about fame. She cared about getting stronger. She stood in the chamber now, her body covered in sweat, her muscles burning. The gravity pressed down on her like the hand of a giant, 15 times normal, 15 times the weight on every part of her body, and she was not walking anymore. She was fighting. Her fists cut through the heavy air. Her legs swept in wide arcs. Her body spun and twisted, each movement precise and powerful. She was practicing Taekwondo, the Korean martial art she had studied since childhood. Every kick, every punch, every block was harder here. Every movement took 10 times the effort. But that was the point. When she fought in normal gravity, she would be unstoppable. On the observation deck, Commander Sun watched with 2 visitors. One was Admiral, the reptilian fleet commander. The other was a human man named Du. He was a sergeant, newly arrived from Earth, and he had requested to meet Lieutenant Hana. "She is remarkable," Admiral said. His scales shifted colors, showing his amazement. "I have commanded warriors for 40 years. I have never seen anything like her." "She is human," Du said simply. "We are all like this. We just need the chance to prove it." Sun looked at the young sergeant. "You want to train with her?" "Yes, Commander. The chamber has killed 2,000 aliens. Are you not afraid?" Du smiled. It was a strange smile, confident and calm. "Commander, I ran my first marathon when I was 16. I climbed my first mountain when I was 18. I have broken bones, torn muscles, and pushed my body past its limits more times than I can count. The chamber is just another challenge. I am not afraid of challenges." Sun nodded slowly. He was beginning to understand humans. They were not brave because they did not feel fear. They were brave because fear did not stop them. "Very well," he said. "You may join her tomorrow." Du entered the gravity chamber the next morning. He lasted 40 minutes on his first try before his legs gave out. He crawled out of the chamber with blood running from his nose and a huge smile on his face. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked Hana. She nodded. "Same time tomorrow." Within a week, Du was lasting 2 hours. Within a month, he was training beside Hana, matching her movement for movement. They sparred in the chamber, throwing punches and kicks that would shatter stone in normal gravity. The aliens watched in silence, unable to believe what they were seeing. More humans arrived. Private, who had survived 5 hours on her first attempt, returned from a mission and joined the training. Corporal Ho, a quiet man with hands, entered the chamber and stayed for 6 hours without rest. Lieutenant Bin, a woman with kind eyes and iron determination, set a new record of 7 hours. The chamber that had killed thousands became a place of legend. Humans gathered there every morning, pushing themselves harder and harder. They encouraged each other. They competed with each other. They grew stronger together. And the aliens began to change their minds about humanity. Lord still refused to watch. He stayed in his quarters, sending angry messages to his government. But others came to observe. They stood on the deck with their shells pulled tight around their bodies, watching the soft humans endure what their greatest warriors could not. "How do they do it?" one young asked Commander Sun. Sun thought about the question. He had read all the reports. He had studied human biology, human history, human psychology, but the answer was simpler than any of that. "They refuse to quit," he said. "That is their secret. They simply refuse to quit." The young looked down at Hana, who was now doing one-armed push-ups in the chamber. "We have warriors who are stronger, faster, better armored, but we do not have warriors who refuse to quit." "No," Sun agreed, "you do not." 3 months later, the first non-human entered the gravity chamber since the human training began. He was a young named Thrum, 7 feet tall and built like a mountain. He had watched the humans train every day for weeks. He had seen them suffer and struggle and succeed, and he had decided to try. "You will die," his commander warned him. "The record is 8 minutes. You cannot survive." Thrum looked at the chamber door. He looked at Hana, who stood nearby, her expression calm and encouraging. "The humans have shown us something," Thrum said. "They have shown us that limits can be broken. I want to break my limits too." He entered the chamber. The gravity activated. Thrum fell to his knees after 30 seconds. The weight was unbelievable, crushing, impossible. His vision went dark. His lungs refused to work. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to quit, to give up, to die. But he thought of Hana. He thought of her walking in the same gravity, training for hours, never stopping. If a soft human could do it, surely a mighty could too. He focused on his breathing the way he had seen the humans do. Long breath in, hold, long breath out, hold. 1 minute passed, 2, 3. On the observation deck, the officers were standing. They were not breathing. They were not blinking. They were watching their young warrior fight against death itself. 5 minutes, 6, 7. Thrum's muscles screamed. His bones creaked. Blood ran from his nose and ears, but he did not fall. 8 minutes, the old record. 9 minutes, 10. Thrum collapsed at 11 minutes and 15 seconds. He was carried out of the chamber unconscious but alive. When he woke in the medical bay, Hana was standing beside his bed. "You beat the record," she said. "Well done." Thrum tried to laugh but could only cough. I wanted to match you. 11 minutes is nothing. Hana shook her head. 11 minutes is everything. It is the first step. Tomorrow you will do 12, then 15, then 20. That is how humans train, one step at a time, 1 minute at a time, never stopping, never quitting. Thrum looked at her with new eyes. This small human woman had changed everything. She had shown the galaxy that strength was not about muscles or armor or natural weapons. Strength was about will. Strength was about refusing to break. "Train me," he said. "Teach me to be like you." Hana smiled. "I cannot teach you to be human, but I can teach you to never quit. That is all you need." Word spread across the Alliance. Thrum had survived the gravity chamber. He had learned from the humans. He had broken his species' limits. Other aliens began to come forward. Not many, most were still too afraid. But some, the brave ones, the curious ones, the ones who looked at humans and saw not weakness but something far more dangerous. The gravity chamber was no longer a test of death. It had become something new, a training ground, a place where limits were broken, a symbol of what was possible when you refused to give up. And at the center of it all stood Hana, the small human woman who had started everything. She trained every morning at 6 a.m. She never missed a day, and every day she grew a little stronger. The galaxy was beginning to understand. Humans were not weak. They were not fragile. They were something the universe had never seen before. They were unstoppable. The attack came without warning. Hana was in the gravity chamber, finishing her morning training, when the alarms began to scream. Red lights flashed across the station. The gravity shut off, and she stumbled as her body suddenly felt light as air. She ran to the observation deck. Commander Sun was already there, his face pale. "What is happening?" Hana demanded. Sun pointed at the main screen. It showed space outside the station, and that space was filled with ships. Hundreds of ships, thousands. They were black and sharp like knives floating in the darkness. "The Dominion of," Sun said. His voice was hollow. "They have invaded Alliance space." Hana had heard of the Dominion. Everyone had. They were an empire from the outer regions of the galaxy, ruled by warlords who believed in only one thing: conquest. Their warriors were genetically engineered for battle. They were fast, strong, and completely without mercy. For centuries they had terrorized the outer systems. Now it seemed they wanted more. "How many ships?" Hana asked. "At least 3,000 in this sector alone," Sun replied. "More are coming. The Alliance fleet is responding, but they are spread too thin. We cannot stop them all." Alarms kept screaming. Soldiers ran through the corridors, grabbing weapons, preparing for battle. The station shook as Dominion ships began their attack. Hana looked at the screen. She saw the enemy ships moving closer. She saw the Alliance vessels trying to form a defensive line. She saw explosions as the first shots were fired. And she made a decision. "Give me a combat unit," she said. "I will hold the station." Sun stared at her. "Lieutenant, we are facing thousands of enemy ships. We are outnumbered. The Dominion has never lost a war." "Then they have never fought humans." Hana gathered her team in the main hangar. They were a mixed group, 12 humans, 6, 3, and 2. All of them had trained in the gravity chamber. All of them had learned to push past their limits. Sergeant Du stood at her right side, his jaw tight with determination. Private was checking her weapons, her young face calm and focused. Thrum, now fully recovered from his first chamber session, cracked his massive knuckles. "Listen to me," Hana said to them all. "The Dominion thinks they are strong. They think their engineered warriors cannot be beaten. They are wrong. I have watched all of you train. I have seen you suffer and struggle and refuse to give up. That is strength, real strength. Today we show the galaxy what we are made of." The soldiers looked nervous. Their species was known for speed, not endurance. One of them spoke up. "Lieutenant, the Dominion fights until their enemies are exhausted. They use wave attacks. They send soldiers again and again until defenders collapse. That is how they win. Hana smiled. It was not a friendly smile. They use exhaustion as a weapon. Good, we will show them what real exhaustion looks like. The first wave hit the station 3 hours later. Dominion drop pods crashed through the outer hull, spilling soldiers into the corridors. They were tall and pale, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red. They moved fast, faster than any natural creature. Their weapons fired bolts of burning energy. Hana met them at the first junction. She did not hide behind cover. She did not wait for them to come to her. She walked forward, her rifle firing in steady bursts, her body moving through the enemy fire like water through stones. 3 Dominion soldiers fell, 4, 5. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Their weapons hit her armor and she kept coming. Their warriors charged and she cut them down. They fought with speed and strength, but she fought with something else, something they did not understand. She fought with stubbornness. The battle lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of constant fighting, constant movement, constant death. The Dominion sent wave after wave of soldiers. Each wave was meant to tire the defenders. Each wave was meant to break their spirit. It did not work. When the human soldiers grew tired, they rested for 10 minutes and returned to fighting. When the soldiers fell, they got back up. When the soldiers were wounded, they wrapped their injuries and kept shooting. By the end of the 6th hour, the Dominion had lost 400 soldiers. The defenders had lost 7. Commander Sun watched from the command center. He had seen many battles in his life. He had never seen anything like this. "They are not stopping," he whispered to Admiral. "The Dominion keeps sending soldiers and the defenders keep killing them. How is this possible?" Admiral shook his head. His scales were pale with shock. "The human woman she is. I do not have words. She has been fighting for 6 hours without rest. She should be dead." "She is human," Sun said quietly. "They do not die when they should." The second wave came 12 hours later. The Dominion commanders were confused and angry. Their tactics had always worked before. Send enough soldiers, attack long enough, and any enemy would break. But these defenders were not breaking. Hana was still at the front. Her armor was scorched and dented. Her rifle was overheating. Her muscles burned with fatigue, but she kept fighting. Du fought beside her, his face covered in sweat and blood that was not his own. Had taken a wound to her arm, but she had wrapped it with a torn piece of uniform and kept shooting. Even Thrum, who had once collapsed after 11 minutes in the chamber, was still standing after 12 hours of battle. "How long can you keep going?" Du shouted over the sounds of weapons fire. Hana slammed a new energy pack into her rifle. "As long as it takes." Day 2 arrived. The Dominion had lost 1,000 soldiers. They pulled back to regroup, unable to understand what was happening. Their commanders argued among themselves. This small station should have fallen in hours. Instead, it was becoming a graveyard. Inside the station, Hana finally allowed herself to rest. She sat against a wall, her eyes half closed, her body aching in ways she had never experienced. Beside her, the other soldiers slept where they had fallen, too tired to move to proper beds. Sun brought her water and food. He sat beside her in silence for a long moment. "You know they will come again," he said finally. "The Dominion does not retreat. They will send more soldiers, more ships. They will keep coming until we are all dead." Hana took a drink of water. It tasted better than anything she had ever tasted. "Then we will keep killing them," she said. "Day after day, week after week, however long it takes. You cannot fight forever." Hana looked at him. Her eyes were red with exhaustion, but something burned behind them, something that would not go out. "No," she agreed, "but I can fight long enough. Humans have a saying, the long road is the one we walk. It means that endurance matters more than speed. The Dominion thinks they can outlast us. They are wrong. They have never met a species that can simply refuse to stop. Sun was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded. Rest now, Lieutenant. I will wake you when they come again. Hana closed her eyes. She was asleep in seconds. Across the station, her soldiers slept too. They dreamed of Earth, of mountains and oceans, of running and climbing and swimming. They dreamed of challenges faced and challenges overcome. And in their dreams, they were already preparing for the next fight, 19 days. That was how long the Siege of Nine lasted. 19 days of constant battle, constant death, constant struggle. The Dominion sent wave after wave of their engineered warriors. They attacked in the morning. They attacked at night. They attacked when the defenders were sleeping, eating, treating their wounds. It did not matter. The defenders held. Hana stood on the front line every day. She slept in 4-hour shifts, her rifle always within reach. She ate cold food from packages, never tasting it. She fought until her arms shook and her vision blurred, then she rested just long enough to fight again. By day 10, the alien members of her unit had collapsed from exhaustion. Their bodies simply could not continue. The strong as mountains fell asleep standing up and could not be wakened. The shells cracked under the stress. The muscles gave out. But the humans kept fighting. Du was everywhere, patching armor, carrying ammunition, shooting any Dominion soldier who came too close. Had not slept in 3 days, her eyes red and wild, her aim still perfect. Ho fought with a broken arm, his other hand never missing a shot. Bin organized the defenses, her voice calm even when explosions shook the walls. The Dominion commanders watched through their sensors and could not understand. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had crushed species far stronger than humans, but these small, soft creatures refused to fall. What are they? One commander asked. Demons, another replied. They must be demons. On day 15, the Dominion tried a new strategy. They sent their champions, the elite warriors who had never been defeated in single combat. These were the greatest soldiers the Dominion had ever created, each one capable of killing 100 ordinary fighters. 6 champions entered the station. Hana killed 3 of them herself. She was beyond tired now. She was beyond pain, beyond fear, beyond anything normal. Her body moved on pure instinct, trained by months in the gravity chamber, hardened by a lifetime of refusing to quit. The champions were fast and strong, but Hana was something else. She was relentless. The first champion came at her with 4-bladed arms spinning like a machine. She ducked under his attack, drove her combat knife into the gap in his armor and twisted. He fell. The second champion tried to crush her with his massive fists. She rolled between his legs, came up behind him and shot him 7 times in the back of the head. He fell. The third champion was smarter. He kept his distance, firing his weapon, trying to wear her down. Hana did not hide. She walked toward him, bullets bouncing off her damaged armor, her face empty of expression. When she reached him, she hit him so hard his reinforced skull cracked. The other 3 champions looked at her. This small human woman covered in blood and burns, her armor barely holding together, her eyes dead with exhaustion and alive with something terrifying. They ran. Dominion champions had never run from battle. They ran now. Day 19 began like all the others. More attacks, more death, more fighting, but something was different. The Dominion waves were smaller, the attacks were weaker, the enemy ships in space had stopped moving. At noon, a message came through on all frequencies. Alliance reinforcements arriving, Dominion fleet retreating. Station 9, your defense has succeeded. Hana heard the message from the front line. She was sitting against a wall, her rifle resting on her knees, too tired to stand. Around her, her soldiers slowly registered the words. It was over. The Dominion had retreated. After 19 days, after thousands of their soldiers dead, after their greatest champions defeated, they had finally given up. Not because they were destroyed, but because they understood they could not win. They could not beat enemies who simply refused to stop. Du slid down the wall beside Hana. His face was gray with exhaustion. His hands were shaking. "We did it," he said. His voice was hollow, disbelieving. Hana nodded. She did not have energy for words. Appeared from somewhere, tears running down her face. She sat on Hana's other side and leaned her head on Hana's shoulder. Ho and Bin joined them, then other soldiers, human and alien alike. They gathered around Hana in a circle of exhausted, wounded, victorious warriors. No one spoke. There was nothing to say. The reinforcement fleet arrived 3 hours later. Admiral's ship docked with the station, and he walked through the corridors with Commander Sun at his side. They saw the damage, the bodies, the blood on the walls. They saw the defenders sitting or lying wherever they had stopped, too tired to move. They found Hana in the same spot, still surrounded by her soldiers. She was asleep now, her head tilted back against the wall, her rifle still on her knees. Even in sleep, her hand did not leave the weapon. Sun looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned to Admiral. "We need to change how we classify species in the Alliance," he said. Nodded slowly. "I have been thinking the same thing." The official order came a week later. The Galactic Military Alliance created a new personnel classification system. There were now 3 categories: combat-ready, support personnel, and human. The third category had its own training standards, its own command structures, its own expectations. Humans were no longer treated like other species. They were treated as something unique, something special, something dangerous. Hana received a promotion. She was now Captain Hana, commander of the 1st Human Combat Division. She also received the Alliance's highest medal for bravery, though she did not care about medals. She cared about one thing only: the gravity chamber. A month after the siege ended, Hana returned to 9. The station had been repaired. The corridors were clean. Life had returned to normal. But one thing had changed. The plaque outside the gravity chamber was different. The old plaque had said, "Evaluation Chamber Extreme Hazard." The new plaque said something else. "Captain Hana, Memorial Training Facility, Humans Only." Hana stood in front of the plaque for a long moment. She did not know what to feel. Pride, maybe, or embarrassment. They had named the chamber after her, and she was still alive to see it. Du appeared beside her. He was fully recovered now, his arm in a sling from a wound that was still healing. "They named it after you," he said. "I see that. How does it feel?" Hana thought about the question. She thought about the months of training, the days of battle, the moments when death had seemed certain. She thought about her soldiers, the ones who had lived and the ones who had not. She thought about the Dominion champions who had run from her and the alien warriors who had learned to push past their limits. "It feels like I should get back to training," she said finally. Du laughed. It was a tired sound but genuine. "Of course it does." Hana opened the door to the chamber. The black metal walls waited for her. The gravity generators hummed with power. Everything was exactly as she remembered. She stepped inside. The door closed behind her. She pressed the activation button. 15 times gravity slammed down on her body like an old friend. Her muscles ached. Her bones creaked. Sweat immediately appeared on her skin. Hana smiled. She was home. She began her warm-up, moving through the familiar exercises. Push-ups, squats, combat forms. Each movement was hard. Each movement was painful. Each movement made her stronger. Outside the chamber, soldiers gathered on the observation deck. Humans and aliens alike, watching the legend train. Some were new recruits who had never seen her fight. Some were veterans who had stood beside her in battle. All of them watched with the same expression: respect, awe, and just a little fear. Hana did not notice them. She was focused on her training, on pushing herself harder, on becoming better. That was what humans did. That was what she did. The galaxy had learned a lesson during the Siege of Nine. They had learned that strength was not about muscles or armor or natural weapons. Strength was about will. Strength was about refusing to break, refusing to fall, refusing to quit. And no species in the galaxy had more will than humans. The Dominion would rebuild. They would plan. They would try again someday, but they would remember Nine. They would remember the small human woman who had killed their champions. They would remember the soldiers who had fought for 19 days without rest. And they would be afraid. In the gravity chamber, Hannah finished her warm-up and began her real training. She had 8 hours until dinner. 8 hours to grow stronger. 8 hours to prepare for whatever came next. She was human. She did not know how to quit. And that made her the most dangerous warrior in the galaxy.